let's get into forms. I really like Plato's idea of the forms because, okay, so when you're replacing these illusions with truth, and this is a big thing. This is a big thing, because, yeah, sure, maybe most people are going to stay in their sea haven hell and they will not escape the cave. But it's important to make an effort. I do believe that trying to see how closely our illusions are to the forms, which is the true nature of something. So Plato's idea, we use forms differently from the way that Plato defined them. Forms were the ideal. So you had the form of romantic love, the form of a government, the form of a friendship. And these were, if you could imagine the perfect relationship, the perfect government, that is the form of that concept. And so what we have in reality are lesser substitutions that are trying to get to the perfect form. And when your substitutions for the forms are lesser than, they lead you astray. So, I mean, this is an interesting idea because especially, I think you can liken the illusions that we hold about our everyday world to kind of the narratives that we tell ourselves about things. So it's really interesting. So recently, I went to the gun range, shooting off guns at the gun range. And this is an interesting thing because it was me doing something that's really different. And when you don't investigate something for yourself, you have a narrative about it. You tell yourself something about it so that you can have some knowledge about it, even if that is illusory knowledge. But you don't know how real it is until you start to actually investigate. And you have to be willing. This is why people don't, and this is why I do think perhaps, I think Plato was a little bit of a misanthropic character. And as such, he probably didn't think that people should even bother pursuing truth, that they should leave it to the professionals, essentially. But the thing about that is that when you hold on to these narratives, I'm going to call them narratives. I would conflate illusions with narratives. A narrative is kind of the illusory story we tell ourselves about something. And the illusion itself maybe is the form, or not Plato's form, but the physical representation that we think of it as. So the narrative might be everyone that shoots guns is some kind of conservative, asshole, aggressive, whatever. But then if you push that and you investigate it more, like I did, it's not that I thought that everybody that shot guns was assholes or whatever, but I was not in that world at all. So all I had was my narrative, which is, I'm sure it's fine and all, but I'm not a gun person. How about that? I'm not a gun person. I'm not interested in shooting guns. I think they're kind of violent. And that's my illusion that I place on the idea of guns. But once you start to push and you investigate, and so I thought, well, I'm going to shoot a gun and see what's going on here. And you realize that your narrative is not entirely accurate. So when I went to the gun range, there's all different kinds of people there. All different kinds of people. It was definitely not just everybody with Trump hats or Western cowboys and whatever. All kinds of people there. Everybody's super nice. And it was fine. It was not as, scary or dangerous or, this harsh environment that I felt, I'm going to be unwelcomed here. It was actually a really welcoming, safe, cool environment. I really enjoyed it. And I had to replace my illusion, my narrative of what this was, what that subculture was, with something now that is a little closer to the form. And so that's what I think is an interesting thing here, is the idea of trying to replace our narratives with Plato's forms. Not that you can ever get to the perfect form, but you want to aim at that. And so that's the thing, though. You have to be willing to let go of the illusions, of the narratives. You have to be willing to push them. So Plato says about the man that escapes the cave. Previously, he had been looking merely at phantoms. Now he is nearer to the true nature of being. And this
Some people call me the man who escaped the cave.
I don't think people call you that. I wouldn't call you that.
Are you saying I haven't escaped the cave yet?
I say that you have a cave beard.
It's been a tough year. All right.
It's been a cave year.
It's been a tough
We're all
year.
in
It's
caves
been a
this
cave
year.
year. Yeah, come on.
It's a cave year.
I'm just going to pretend like I don't always look like this. That's what the pandemic's really helped.
I mean, that's true. It's true. It's true. Anyway, you're not at your form, you know? You're at your illusion. Your self is illusory.
This may be the form.
Eventually you'll reach a form.
This may be the true form. Well,
2020?
It's 20. Oh boy. I don't know.
We're just all trying to hold on. This better not be my fucking form or I'm going to hang it up.
Well, I
haven't
mean,
had a
if you
haircut
want to,
in God knows how long.
I mean,
I shot guns before I got a haircut.
It certainly did shatter some illusions. I mean,
yeah,
about the
true.
world, and you're like at a gun range at this point. So
ready
I mean,
to go.
ready to go, like wearing American flag bandanas, probably. Yeah. So I mean, some illusions were
illusions were fucking hung up. But
Yeah.
at the same time, how many of the prisoners fought those for their illusions? That's the thing is that.
So what Plato is really saying is give the prisoners guns.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
We'll get pulled off YouTube. Don't know.
Oh yeah, yeah. That sounds really. It's hard. It's hard to talk anymore.
Give the prisoners guns.
I don't know. That wasn't. This is the allegory of the
defund
cave.
the police. Abolish the prisons.
All right, we're dating
and then
ourselves.
give the prisoners guns.
This is not going to be a ideal podcast because we'll be talking about all these.
The form of this podcast is far. We are far from the ideal podcast form.
We are.
All right, let's keep it rolling. So here's the thing: Truman's in the cave. I really like the idea though, because here you have all these illusions, all these kind of stand-ins for what a marriage should be. What a community should look like. And Christoph does say I gave him a chance for a normal life. This is what he says, your world is the one that is broken. Sea Haven is the way the world should be. But that's not real. What things should be is, different from what they truly are. And so Christoph creates this world of illusions for what he thinks things should be, but they aren't fully conceived. And this is what I think leads Truman to be so unsatisfied because, and it's a really interesting thing to see this character that has this kind of innate yearning for more. It starts in the beginning of the film with him kind of, I want to go to Fiji. And you see from him as a young child also these things of, I want to be an explorer. There's this innate yearning for more than these illusions.
It's not
that are
innate.
presented to him.
It's not, though, because I thought about that. The Fiji thing I thought was, oh, yeah, it's just some wacky thing he wants to do or whatever. We think of like people that are bored in middle America and they like have this fantasy of Fiji as an exotic place. But remember, the idea of Fiji was actually implanted into his mind by Sylvia, if I recall.
Yeah.
Who when they captured her, the father said, "We're going to Fiji." So it wasn't even his
but
idea.
He did want to explore from a child.
Not Fiji, though. As far as I know.
No, not Fiji. Well, the hell, I didn't know Fiji existed when I was a kid.
But your geographic knowledge as a child was wanting.
It was lacking. It's fine. When I was like 7 years old, I didn't know about Fiji. I knew about other islands. Not Fiji. Yeah. The island I have heritage in. That's it. Probably.
Hawaii.
I'm not Hawaiian. The Cuban island.
This starting my own rumors and conspiracies that you're actually from Hawaii.
Very good. That's fine, maybe.
I keep derailing your idea of the forms. I don't know about forms. What do I think about forms?
You can't know about forms because we're human beings and forms are perfect. So forms are inherently beyond our reach. But we can...
How can we even speak to them then?
We can't... You try to. That's the thing. You pursue them. You try to reach for perfection. And that's what we do all the time, unless you're some kind of miserable person or you're afraid of what's outside the cave.
I don't think that's true.
You may derail yourself.
Okay. Here's the thing. In defense of Sea Haven and in defense of Christoph. Sea Haven, I mean, look, a little boring, but I mean, it was regular. He was safe. He was taken care of by the entire world, essentially. Right? He had a job that was boring or whatever, but good enough. He had his house. He had his stuff. He had, I don't know, a friend. He had some things, you know.
Some things.
What we don't see is what happens after the end of the movie, where he then walks through the door and goes out into the real world. Maybe Christoph was right. Maybe the real world, because, you know, and they show this a little bit. You don't see the outer world that much in the film, but you do occasionally see... I won't say that it looks grimy, the real world or whatever, but they do kind of show... They make some little hints at turmoil. Like Sylvia in the real world has all these posters on her wall about protests, about freeing Truman. There is a little bit of this idea that, and Christoph says it, that the world outside is kind of terrible. Yeah. You know, so... And
that's true. That's also inherently true.
So that can't be the form, because if the
well, no, the world isn't a form.
But within this film, Sea Haven is the world of the shadows, and the outer world, which we don't see much of, is the ideal form, is it not?
No. So the form is different. The world has forms within it. No, sorry. The world does not have forms, because no form exists. That's the thing. The form is perfection. So nothing perfect can exist. They are the ideal to which we try to aspire to. So there's the form of government. An ideal government would be XYZ, and then we try to aspire to that ideal. But this is always going to fall short in reality. And that's okay. But you want to try to get as close to the form, which requires, examination and not, moving outside the cave to do so. If all you're looking at is the shadow, the illusion of a government, you're going to be even farther from ever aspiring to the highest form that it can be.
I reject it. The reason I have to reject it... No,
I reject your rejection.
But I have to reject it. I have to reject your rejection of my rejection, because here's the problem. If the form does not have any reality, I insist that it must have a reality. Because if it doesn't...
I don't think so.
Well, I'm just going to believe it does. Because if it doesn't, then all the form is, you keep calling it this ideal, this state of perfection. But that very ideal and state of perfection is just a bunch of shadow people coming up with ideas of what they think is an ideal thing. And if you listen to Plato, he thinks he ought to rule over you as a philosopher king. And I think like ban music or something. Like he's really, like hardcore about some of his ideas as the ideal ruler. So is that
the style?
Forms have messed up my hairstyle.
Forms.